House of Representatives passes amended 2022 supplementary appropriation. House moves to strengthen National Drug Law Enforcement Agency. And House urges removal of subsidy on other petroleum products. Hello and welcome to You and Your Reps on the NTA. I am Victor, so thank you for joining us. The House of Representatives has extended implementation of the amended 2022 supplementary budget to 31st December 2023. The 2022 supplementary budget of 819.5 billion naira made provisions for the repair of infrastructure damaged by flood last year across the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory.
Honourable members will recall that the bill was read the first time on Sunday, 28 May 2023.
This is the first time the 9th House of Representatives is holding a session on a weekend to consider a request of public importance from the executive. It is, however, the second time the lawmakers are extending the implementation of the capital aspect of the 2022 supplementary budget. It was first extended from March 31st to 30th June 2023.
Is to allow government to execute the laudable programs. Those projects have the effect of generating multiplier effects in the economy, regenerating the economy, and has the effect of bridging the gap in our much needed infrastructure needs that would propel our economy to grow in leaps and bounds.
It's even the reason why we are reconvening to consider these important legislations because of its importance. We are sitting on a Sunday to ensure that things go smoothly and in accordance with our proceedings.
To amend the Supplementary Appropriation Act 2022 to extend the implementation year of the capital aspect from 30 June 2023 to 31st December 2023. Our colleagues, the third reading of the bills have been read and passed.
Also considered and passed is the Central Bank of Nigeria Amendment Bill, which seeks an increase of ways and means from 5% to 15%. The bill enacting Federal Produce Inspection Service was passed by the House. The bill seeks enforcement of grades and quality on produce and commodities for exports from Nigeria at the various ports before shipments.
Meanwhile, a legislation that would add impetus to the fight against trafficking and abuse of drugs in Nigeria has been approved by the House of Representatives. Now, the amendment grants the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency power to review penalty on drug-related offenses in Nigeria.
The National Drug Law Enforcement Agency Amendment Bill was forwarded from the Senate for concurrence. The bill, earlier passed and forwarded to the executive for assent, was however sent back to the National Assembly for necessary corrections. The new provisions would enable the NDLEA establish laboratories, update the list of illicit drugs, and prosecute offenders.
What was the provision before? What was the term of years there, so that we can understand the justification? Because I think that possession, which could come in any way, is fairly draconian.
The life being destroyed in comparison to the punishment they are not close to. You now imagine your brother turned into a mad person on the street. From productivity to uselessness and hopelessness. I think we should support the government to do the right thing.
Bill to grant the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission to enforce its power to monitor and disburse revenue from the Federation accounts in conformity with constitutional provisions was also approved.
The existing act does not enable the authority, give them the enablement to properly enhance the process. So this act is seeking to give them that enablement to make it easier for revenue mobilization for national development. 7 bills were read for the third time and passed, among them bill to establish the Microbiology Council of Nigeria.
To provide for the council of its membership and to promote and foster the practice of microbiology in the Federation and for related matters.
The House also passed a bill to establish Federal College of Health Technology, Beni Sheikh, Borno State, sponsored by Usman Zanna.
For the second time in a week, the House of Representatives declared support for the federal government's decision on subsidy removal. Now, this time, the House has gone a step further to suggest the removal of subsidy on all petroleum products in Nigeria.
The latest resolution by the House is as recommended by an ad hoc committee set up in June 2022 to investigate the petroleum subsidy regime in Nigeria from 2013 to 2022. House members, while considering the report, adopted all 11 recommendations, one of which advised the federal government to immediately design and implement measures and palliatives, such as providing alternative and cheaper means of transportation across the country. The House suggested that a representative from the Nigerian Navy be provided for all agencies involved in lifting of crude to enable physical assessment and documentation. Members agreed that all provisions contained in the Petroleum Industry Act be implemented. A motion from Francis Agbo calling on the federal government to declare a state of emergency on illicit drug was adopted.
The tragic phenomenon now affects all strata and demographic groups of our country. It is pertinent for government at all levels, the organized private sector, and the family unit work closely to combat this menace.
Two reports from the House Committee on Basic Education in relation to rehabilitation of all unity schools and ensuring recruitment of qualified and registered teachers in Nigerian schools were adopted.
Well over 70% right now are neither qualified nor registered, and this is why we find all kinds of quacks. In my own constituency, we have schools where persons with 4 credits, 3 credits are teaching children, and they really don't know what to deliver.
8 bills were read for the third time and passed, while bill to establish Nigeria Institute of Plant Protection was among those considered as the committee of the whole.
You and your reps later caught up with Chair of the House Ad Hoc Committee investigating the petroleum products subsidy regime from 2013 to 2021, Ibrahim Al-Mustapha Aliyu, to give us an insight into the committee's findings.
We were able to invite about 300 oil companies, about 65 MDS, civil society organizations, including labor unions, student associations. About 67 firms responded, the oil companies, particularly those that are involved in the direct sales, direct purchase contract. And from the report you can see out of 67 of them that responded, about 32 also made submissions and appeared, and then 13 of them were cleared because they made substantial compliance level of the committee, while the 7 others could not, out of the 32. Other 15 or 12 of them have not participated in the DSDP program and they are discharged. From January 2013 to December 2016, the government spent a colossal sum of 4.44 trillion naira on subsidy-related expenditure. For example, there are a particular period when the PMS in the world market cost about 428 naira, but the pump price in Nigeria, for example, in Lagos, is 165. So the cost differential between what is the actual cost in the world market and what is sold here is the value shortfall. The value shortfall is a subsidy, and then the government has to augment that amount to be able to bring fuel into the country so that economic activities can continue. And particular observation that necessitated the committee's resolve to just do the hard thing by removing the subsidy was that in August 2022, the NNPC generated 553 billion in revenue from oil and gas operations, but it has to deduct 525 billion from the 553 as shortfall, leaving just a paltry of about 17 billion as income for the country. We offered that the government should also introduce intermodal regional and national transport system to ease mass movement of people across the country. When you move to when you go to countries that are said to be developed, you see how people move from one place to another without recourse to whether they have vehicles or not, because they have all these vehicles at their doorsteps. You can either join a light rail or a bus, and then you move from one point to another unhindered, very comfortable. We look forward to having that in this country. Secondly, when you have enough money, generally it will have to reflect on the overall wage increase and salary, so that at least Nigerians can have living wage. When you have living wage and you have option of transportations, I think we are good to go, and government will have enough to be able to fix infrastructure, particularly roads, introduce intermodal transport system, introducing rail, light rail, and then rail connecting states, and any other means of transportation that can improve the living conditions of Nigerians. That the committee also recommended that the federal government should, as a matter of urgency, liaise with the National Assembly to fashion out critical areas of economic development, which the additional revenue from the proposed subsidy removal will be appropriately utilized.
Proclamation is basically a declaration, but one that holds huge significance for the legislature, as it declares the end of an assembly and beginning of another. We therefore went to the chair of the House Committee on Rules and Business, Abubakar Fulata, to talk us through the process, and that's on legislative terms and tools segment.
Proclamation is the powers that is given to the president by the Constitution, section 64, subsection 1, empowers the president at the expiration of the tenure of each assembly to declare that that assembly is dissolved, and also to enable the inauguration of the new assembly immediately at the expiration of the tenure of each assembly. In this case, it is June 12. By June 12, the tenure of the 9th Assembly would expire. So it is assumed that June 12 being public holiday, the next day will be 13th of June. The President, in accordance with powers granted to him by the Constitution, by Section 64, subsection 1 of the Constitution, will now issue a letter which will be read to the new members-elect by the clerk, saying that I proclaim the the 10th Assembly. Later will be read. Then a roll call will be made of the new members elect, and then election will be commenced. A new speaker and deputy speaker will be elected immediately after the proclamation.
The new administration is gradually settling in, but what are the expectations of the common man? You and your reps went about town to find out.
I believe the incoming administration should prioritize more on education and also agriculture, and which will also enhance the growth of the economy, because I know Nigerians are more blessed, both in human and natural resources.
The employment of youth, I think they should work on that, because without the youth being employed, you see everything going wrong.
Each sector complements, each other. Look at the agricultural sector, there's nothing wrong about them. Look at the business environment. Look, is it the forex? Is it the unemployment level? Is it the insecurity in the land? So the thing needs a holistic approach.
They should give employment more focus, because mostly the youths these days are just roaming about, nothing doing, and education also should follow.
The incoming administration should prioritize every aspect of the economy, but key, you see, agriculture is crucial, not just for food sufficiency. We are able to export, and then the incoming administration too should focus on developing small and medium-scale enterprises, small businesses, because they are the backbone to every single economy.
The only way the teeming youth can be employed is by industrialization, nothing else.
And one of the major pronouncements of President Bola Tinubu in his inaugural speech was to discontinue fuel subsidy. And this has generated diverse reactions as expected. So we approached Majority Leader of the House of Representatives, Al-Hassan Adodogwa, to give us a legislative perspective to the issues.
Subsidy is one thing that one has to agree that is rather a burden on our economic system than a good thing. If you go to other countries that are also into OPEC, other countries that are called oil-producing countries, for quite too long, they have already removed this idea of subsidy. Because if you look at the irony, the contradiction in the concept of subsidy, it's simply making the common man much more impoverished and enriching the advantaged class of people, those who do have a lot. Mr. President, for me, has done the right thing. It takes courage to do it. All other presidents in the past avoided it because they thought it was going to be unpopular. Actually about 3-4 presidents tried to do it. Right from day one, when we initiated the PIB, Petroleum Industry Bill. The concept behind PIB was simply to create a window where subsidy can be removed
because it's of no effect whatsoever to the development of our economy, and it does not add up any value to the common man. If you save these trillions of naira, trillions of money that were used in the name of subsidy, save them, inject them into the educational sector, inject them into the agriculture, create avenues for jobs creation so that youth can have one or two things to now hold on to and sustain themselves. Inject funds into the issue of power supply. Then I'm telling you, Nigeria's economy will become not only gingered, but it will become a renewed economy, an economy of hope, an economy where every Nigerian will be proud of it. And I think that is what President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, I think, is trying to really achieve. I think the only thing that we must have to do, those of us on this side of the government, the legislature, we must definitely be ready to help the government with the new president. And when issues come up, to do with policy formulations that require legislations, then I think the National Assembly should be there for Mr. President, because I believe the removal of subsidy is in good intention, and it will definitely help our economy, and our people will benefit for it. You see, as long as you don't have sufficient jobs to provide to the youth, as long as you don't have institutions that will accommodate young graduates into gainful employment, then definitely the window for tendencies of youth to go into criminality becomes high. And that was why, of course, when you now come to contain the issue of insecurity, as it were, it becomes a very big and huge problem. Huge problem because it's been the system has been so much overwhelmed. And it's like young men and women look at the insecurity issues, look at criminalities, windows for criminalities, as if they are options to gainful employment. Look at this issue, for instance, this kidnapping issue, the issue of banditry. All this provided like alternative options to young men who would have been otherwise gainfully employed in normal and formal institutions of government. And when you don't have access to be employed into a legitimate gainful employment, then definitely you will be tempted to be recruited into criminality. And this was the reason why the issue of insecurity becomes so overwhelming that even when we expected a lot from Muhammadu Buhari as the president then, it's like at the end, we were not able to contain some of those major challenges. Buhari did well, actually. You can tell me, you can remember what was happening in the Northeast before Buhari came into power. What also was obtained in the Northwest, in places like Kano, where worshiping in churches and mosques were almost impossible. But with Buhari in government then, and with his kind of experience as a military man, of course, so many things changed. At least to some point, a lot of things have changed for good. So I want to believe that it is now obvious, not only obvious, it is now mandatory for the new president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, to have to now come up with another mechanism that will not only sustain what Buhari has laid down as a foundation, but must be able to sustain the infrastructure to which we can fight the menace of insecurity in the nation. The military, of course, they have done the best. They are doing the best they could. The police also, they are doing their best. But I think we need to actually look at the welfare, moral encouragement of our security personnel. Welfare of our security personnel has to be looked into, because you must have to boost their morale. If their morale is not boosted, if their welfare and the welfare of their family is always at stake, a military officer will just die. When he dies, that's the end of it. Policeman will be injured. When he's injured, incapacitated, nothing goes about him. You see, this will come up with a lot of discouragement. And I think the new government must first of all look at the issue of welfare, well-being, welfare and well-being of the military officers and the police officers, and even all other security agencies. Look at their salary packages. Is it encouraging? Is it the same as it happens in other countries? Then as long as you want to really encourage them, then review their salary packages, review their general welfare, review their housing facilities. It is only then they will now begin to decide to give their very best. And when they give their very best, we'll get over it, we'll overcome it. And when it comes to funding, the National Assembly, where we work here, is responsible for the budgeting, is responsible for providing resources for all these security agencies to work. And I want to assure the new government, led by Bola Ahmed Tinubu, that the 10th Assembly will be as organized as the 9th Assembly. The 10th Assembly will be as cooperative as the 9th Assembly. If not more than that, we must always provide that enabling environment for the government, either in terms of legislation or in terms of provisions of funds, in terms of what you call money bill. Whatever comes up to us for consideration in terms of financing, especially in the area of security, I want to believe that this institution will be there for the government, will be there for our people, and we must make sure that nothing goes bad as far as security is concerned.
Indeed, how government plans to cushion the effects of subsidy removal will be of particular interest to the common man. And that's been you and your reps for this week. Thank you for sticking around. I'm Victor, as we'll see you next time.